What I've entitled this is Investing for Success. And when I walked around earlier today, I picked up this brochure from FiberMax and from Stoneville. And in this variety, or in this group of varieties, they've got two that are nematode resistance, okay? That are listed that way. I picked up the Phytogen variety handout. They got 427, they got 367 in here with known resistance. He's using the wrong thing. He doesn't know what he's missing now. All right, the 367 and 428. 1454 from Delta Pine. If you've been to my talks before, especially last year, we started talking about varieties with nematode resistance. Well, now Delta Pine's got one. And I don't know how much the seed's going to be, or how much seed there's going to be, probably not a whole lot. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know. In order to get seed, growers have to want to use it. They have to ask for it. But if you don't have seed, then they don't ask for it. So hopefully we'll continue to get it built up. We'll have information and interest. And then, and Wilson's in the back from Syngenta, walk by their booth, and they have this nice packet with information. They still got some left back there, don't you, Wilson? All right, information on the different defoliar diseases of cotton and risk indices that we're working on, and also the fungicide offerings from Syngenta. So the point of all this is that what I do, which is a plant pathologist and a nematologist wannabe, okay, is that in the cotton production now in Georgia and southeast United States, these companies are bringing opportunity to you. Now, as they bring that opportunity to you, whether it's to fight foliar diseases, whether it's to combat nematodes, whether it's to give you extra protection from seedling disease, that all comes at a cost to you, right? My job in cooperative extension, the county agents, we aren't here to tell you what decision to make. But what I hope you'll walk away from after this session today is the kind of information that will help you make the best decision for yourself. Okay? And why do we talk about it? Syngenta and BASF are selling fungicides, and all of the big seed companies now have nematode resistance, root knot resistance out there. Now it's up to you to decide if you want to use it, how you want to use it, and what information we can give you. Another handout I've got up here, if you're interested, this is just a relatively informal book on nematodes in cotton. It's got a lot of information in a very informal way, so please take a copy if you want it. Questions before we get started? I went ahead and didn't introduce myself. I'm Bob Kemerait. I am the extension specialist for soybeans, cotton, corn, and peanuts. I work with the nematodes and diseases. I'm stationed right here in Tifton. That's my email address. Or you can get in touch with your county agent, whatever county you're in, and they can get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can. Investments. All right, that's what I want to talk about. What you can invest based upon the products that are available, be they seed, fungicides, or other. What are the investments for 2014? What do I think that might be available to you? We're going to start with the seed. The seed that I'm talking about is those varieties that have some level of resistance to root knot nematode. If anybody in this room has reniform nematode or Columbia lance nematode or sting nematodes on your farm, okay, just remember these nematode resistant varieties won't help you at all. They'll walk right through it. We're talking about the varieties now that have root knot nematode resistance. We're going to talk about seed treatments. One of the best investments you make every year as far as your cotton seed and the potential for that cotton seed is that base fungicide seed treatment. Whether you're buying Phytogen cotton, FiberMax or Stoneville, or Delta Pine cotton, they all come with at least 4 fungicides already on the seed that you don't pay a dime extra for. You might say you're paying enough already. Okay? The nice thing about these base fungicides is they are very good, they're very effective, and in most years and in most situations they're all that you need. But you've got the opportunity for overcoat fungicides. You can spend more money to put more fungicide on your cotton seed, and we'll talk about why you might do that. What's interesting is I'm going to tell you that 80% of the time you don't need to invest in overcoat fungicide. You already get what you need in that base fungicide. 80% of the years, 4 out of 5 years, you don't need it. But for a lot of growers, if they look at the cost of Trilex or Dynasty and they say it's about $4 more per acre, And you look at what you're already spending, a lot of growers say, I'm going to go ahead and invest in it anyway. Regardless, Bob says we don't need it most of the time. Nematicide seed treatments. What happened in 2010, 2011 that changed cotton production as far as nematodes go? Temic was lost. By the way, Mimic, you've heard about Mimic. Okay, Mimic is a cool name, a great name. It's the alternative to Temic. It's the generic formulation. The path has grown cold. There's no discussion. The last discussion I heard was if they had $56 million invested, they could move forward. And I haven't heard anything since then. So these seed treatment nematicides we'll talk about, you have the opportunity to invest in them. And a lot of growers are feeling they have to invest because we don't have anything else. Management for foliar diseases. Nothing I do is more controversial than the need to protect the cotton plant from foliar disease, namely one disease, and that's target spot. You have the opportunity very easily. Wilson in the back from Syngenta is very happy to talk to you about using Quadris on target spot. BASF, David Henson, who's here, very helpful with you on headline. What I want to help you with is, do you need it, and what do we know about it now? And the last thing is management of nematodes with nematicides, specifically telone. With the loss of Temic, more growers are saying, taking the plunge and saying, I need to use telone. Okay? Need to use telone. Now we'll talk about how you can do it more effectively. Any questions from me on that? Let's start off with nematodes. Okay? And what products we can invest in, what we might invest. If you see foliar symptoms like this in the field, okay? That interveinal chlorosis, that to me is the first indication there's a nematode problem. Now the nematodes don't cause that directly, but by affecting the root system, the root knot nematodes, by affecting that root system, by causing the galls, by affecting the uptake of the nutrients, you see that nutrient deficiency in the leaves, you see this in your field. Before you say the word sorry dirt, think about nematodes. And when you think about nematodes, think about a shovel and dig the roots up, and if you see those galls on them, you've diagnosed what the problem is. Now if the reniform nematodes or Columbia lance nematodes, you won't see the galls, but you can get that with a soil sample. But for most growers in the state, root knot nematodes would be something that they can look for. I estimate, based upon our surveys as far back as 2002, that 70% of the acreage, the cotton acreage in the state, and a large proportion of the soybean acreage, and a large proportion of the cotton acreage, and a large proportion of our soybeans, corn, cotton, vegetables as well, is infested with the southern root knot nematode. The southern root knot nematode is so widespread because it's got a wide host range. Corn, cotton, soybeans, vegetables, weeds, just about anything goes to it. That's why peanuts is such a great rotation crop. The southern root knot nematode that affects cotton does not go to peanut. And so you have a break there. Losses can be severe. In this map you can see wherever we got a forest green county, that's where we know there's cotton or southern root knot nematodes affecting the cotton. We got varieties with partial resistance. Partial resistance means not complete, they're not immune, but they still get it. We'll talk about that. We've also got nematicides out there. Does anybody in here, as far as a grower goes, is anybody dealing with reniform nematode? You got some reniform nematode, don't you? Okay. If anybody else is, when we're talking about this resistance again, remember, it's only for the root knot nematode. The nematicide information is valid. The nematode resistance is only for the southern root knot. The varieties you see here, 427, 367, 5458, 4288, 4946, and 1454, all of those varieties have resistance to the southern root knot nematode. All of those varieties, I can promise you two things about those varieties. The first thing is, if you plant these varieties in a field with southern root knot nematode compared to a variety that's not on that list, they will have less damage at the end of the season. They'll have less of that. The roots will be cleaner. And you will have less nematodes in the soil at the end of the season, meaning you'll have less nematodes for the following year. I can guarantee you those two things. Less damage compared to a susceptible variety, and less nematodes for the following year. Those are both good things. What can I guarantee you?
Better yield.
Better yield. I cannot guarantee you that if you plant a 427 in a field and 499 beside it, I cannot guarantee you that the 427 will yield better than the 499. I can say it's going to have less damage. I'm going to say it has less nematodes around the roots. But whether the 499 outyields the 427 or not, in large part, depends upon how bad the nematodes are. The more nematodes they are, the better the 427 will look versus the 499. Also, depending upon what nematicides you put out, you may be able to compensate for this, right? But these varieties, especially in a tough situation, especially with the loss of Temic, these varieties are looking better and better. The three that I'm looking to this year, 427, I believe 427 has the best resistance of any variety we have out there. That doesn't mean the other varieties don't have resistance. It doesn't mean that they don't yield better or the same. It just means, I think, from looking at our data, it has the best. 4946 looks very good from Stoneville. The 1454, I haven't looked at it as much, but it also has resistance. Okay, any one of those three. 54, 58, 42, 88, 367 look okay. All right, but again, they probably won't be that much seed. 367. Has anybody grown 367? What'd you think about it?
I thought it was pretty decent cotton, but it didn't yield as well as some other varieties.
We could have scripted that. Pretty decent cotton that didn't yield as well as other varieties. What I can tell you is, if you were willing to try 367, if you try 427, 427's yield potential is somewhere between 367 and 499. If you put 499 into a nematode field, the 427 is going to look a lot better than 367 did. If you put them in fields that don't have nematodes, 367 will be a falling off, 427 will be better, 499 probably the best. Did anybody attend the variety sessions today? If you attend the variety sessions, and they had their fancy graphs about the varieties and how they yielded in the top 3 this many times, or in the top 5%, or whatever it is, these varieties typically don't show up. In the OVT trials, we're looking at that typically in fields that don't have a nematode problem. These varieties shine compared to the others when you got a nematode problem. If you don't have nematodes, look for other varieties. You got nematodes, look at these varieties. Okay? Pros and cons. After every issue, I'm going to talk to you about the pros and cons if I'm trying to sell it to you. What did I tell you? If you plant a nematode-resistant variety, southern root knot nematode-resistant variety, you're going to have less damage, less nematode buildup. That's going to help you for your rotation. And it may help you with your fusarium wilt, because fusarium wilt is tied to root knot nematode damage, less fusarium wilt. As far as yield, yield has many components, and nematode damage is only one component. These varieties, in an equal playing field, probably don't have the same yield potential that your highest yielding varieties do. But put them in a nematode situation, especially where you don't have a Temic nematicide you want to use, they look better and better. Okay? And remember, we're talking about root knot, not reniform, not Columbia lance, not sting. Questions on seed? Questions on seed? Okay? Let's talk about seedling diseases. And again, that's something that everybody has to be aware of. Everybody who grows cotton. The cool, wet weather we had last spring when we were planting cotton, that is perfect for having a problem with seedling diseases. You invest in the seed, a bag of seed costs, what, $500, $600? You can't afford to have seedling diseases occur. We've got basically 2 types. We've got Rhizoctonia, which this is. Rhizoctonia occurs when the plants come up. They call it sortian. They germinate, they emerge, and then they die. The Pythium is typically a seedling disease, or is a pre-emergent disease. Pythium, it typically occurs, you plant the seed and it never comes up. Okay? Pythium hits it before it emerges, but both can cause problems. That base fungicide seed treatment that you don't have to ask for, whether you're planting phytogen cotton, Delta pine cotton, you're planting Stoneville or Fibermax, they all come with at least 4 fungicides just because you bought the bag of seed, and those are good fungicides. They're effective against the Pythium, the Rhizoctonia, and also some other diseases as well, Fusarium and Thalaviopsis, even though we don't have a problem with that. But you've got extra seed treatments. Dynasty and Trilex and Acceleron, those are additional fungicides. Okay? The Eris and the Evicta, nematicides, and we'll talk about this. But why talk about the seed treatments? You know, why not move on to something else? Because you've got the opportunity to invest in it. You got the products out there. What do you want to do? Why are we talking more and more about seed treatments? When I started in 2000, we spent most of our time in this session, as far as seedling disease went, talking about in-furrow fungicides. In-furrow fungicides, for the record, are better than seed treatments. You treat the soil, you treat the seed, they're better. But we don't talk about in-furrow fungicides anymore. Why?
Lazy.
I tend to use the word convenience. All right? Lazy or convenient, it just makes sense if you can do it to put the stuff on the seed and not worry about the hopper boxes. Okay? Because of the convenience and also because of the advanced technologies. We're better now. Syngenta's better now at making sure the right amount of seed gets, or treatment fungicide gets on the seed. We got new chemistries, better technology. For all of those reasons and the convenience, our seed treatments today and what we can pack on the seed is vastly different than it was when I started 14 years ago. In-furrow fungicides are still more effective, but seed treatments are more convenient and the gap between them is closed. The blue at the top, you may not be able to read it, you don't need to be able to read it. Only to note is three things. The first thing is I got all the companies up there: FiberMax, Stoneville, Delta Pine, Phytogen. The second thing is every one of those base seed treatments up there is composed of at least 4 fungicides. They're good fungicides and they're effective against the diseases you need to have. Okay? And of course, that comes without whether you ask it or not. The Dynasty from Syngenta, the Trilix Advanced from Bayer Crop Science are additional fungicide overcoat treatments that you can invest in. All right? Now, I've already told you that our belief is that at 1 out of 5 years, 20%, 30% of the time, this will provide you better results than what you're already getting without any extra cost. So why would you invest in something like this? Okay? One reason is growers say, well, I've already invested so much in the seed itself, I want the added protection. The second reason, somebody could point a finger at me and say, well, you can't tell me what year is going to be the bad year. You know, you can talk about climate and climate change and El Nino and La Nina and a cooler, wetter winter or spring, okay? But I don't want to go out there and find out that I didn't have every tool I needed, okay? We got the nematicide seed treatments, and then Monsanto has, so we got the Eris and the Victa. Monsanto has Acceleron N, which is basically, as far as nematicide seed treatment goes, the same as the Avicta. And why have they come out? It's the convenience that it offers and the new chemistries that we've got that we can put on the seed. This is a trial from last year, right here in Tifton. This orange is the untreated. No seed treatment at all, which I told you we don't want to do. These are some of the older chemistries that we don't use anymore, but we include in the test. The green are offerings from Bayer Crop Science. The red are offerings from Syngenta. And these are some other ones from different smaller companies. This is your stand count approximately a month after planting. What's that tell you? This is in a cotton, peanut sandy field in a cool, wet spring. What does that tell you when you look at that chart? That's a month after planting. That's your stand count. What's it say? As far as stand went, and I wouldn't have believed it to begin with, but even the untreated looked pretty good. But typically what we will see is, regardless of which one you're putting out there, the stands are pretty much the same in 4 out of 5 years. Okay? That's why I'm cautious in saying whether you need an overcoat or not. I'm not trying to stop you from it, but oftentimes we don't see a difference. But what if we put a worst case scenario? Same test, split the test in half, and in the second half of the test we poured Rhizoctonia in with the seed. A worst case, hellish situation for the seedlings. And that's what we've got here. When we planted the seed, we poured the Rhizoctonia in with it. This is what happens if you don't treat the seed at all in a worst case situation. This green bar is the base treatment for Stoneville and FiberMax. This is if the Stoneville and FiberMax have the overcoat. This is the base treatment from Phytogen seed. This is a Syngenta treatment. That's the base plus the overcoat. In a worst case situation, These additional fungicides buy you protection for that seed. There's no doubt about it. In a natural situation last year in our fields, we didn't need it. But in a worst case situation, we do. And it's not just stand, it's vigor as well. And when we went out and rated for vigor, bigger bars is more vigorous. Here's if we didn't treat. The base treatment, base plus overcoat, base plus overcoat. Okay? And that's what we can get. When you're thinking about, do I want to invest in it? It's an insurance policy that often we don't need. But if you need it, in this case an artificially worst case situation, you can see that the fungicide overcoats do offer protection. So when we're talking about Overcoat fungicide treatments, they have added extra protection. I believe in that. They add insurance. You know, I buy life insurance, but I hope I don't need it. Right? Convenience compared to in-furrow. Increased stands may or may not improve yield. All I'm showing here is, did they protect your seed? And they did. They add expense. But as far as expense to a bag of seed, it's not that much. Okay? Life after Timic. Any question about seed treatments as far as fungicides go? After Timic. People have told me I need to get over Timic. Bob, it's gone. You need to get over it. But I really like Timic. Yeah?
On the seed treatments, is it better when some of these salespeople tell you to double treat it, the same stuff?
Double treat it with the same things? I wouldn't do that. Question is, if you were given the opportunity to put twice as much of the same thing on it, would that be my idea? Probably not. What I would want to do, if you look at what Syngenta, if you look at what Bayer does, is they're bringing new chemistries, different chemistries on top of it. If I had the choice and I was going to overtreat, I would want to put additional chemistries and more of that on them. Okay? Is there anything wrong with double treating? And I'm not sure who would be doing that, but I like the idea if you've got phytogen seed and then complementing what you've got with the Dynasty CST or the Fibermax seed, complementing it with the Trilex. That would be my preference. Okay? Good question. Life after Timic. Timic was the backbone. 5 pounds per acre, 6 pounds per acre in furrow. We come back in side dress if we needed to. It was a very versatile. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. What are we going to do? If we don't have Timic out there, what's our new approach? Most growers and most consultants and agents who talk to me say, what's your recipe now in the absence of Timic? The first thing I ask them is, are you going to use Telone? And if they say they're going to fumigate with Telone, I say, you found a great answer. Most growers don't say they're going to fumigate with Telone. In that situation, for root knot nematode, our best solution is to use a seed treatment nematicide like Eris or Avicta, to choose a resistant variety, and to treat with Vidate. 17 ounces per acre, somewhere between the 5th and 7th true leaf stage. Before Timic went away, you never heard me talk about Vidate. Because when Timic was around, and I know that Vidate in our soils, unless you're in some of the heavier soils with reniform, Vidate in sandy soils on root knot nematodes is a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. But at this point in time, if we don't have what we want and we're trying to piece together, Vidate does contribute something. Okay? If you want to control thrips with Vidate, what's your timing of application of Vidate? Anybody know? First leaf. If you want to extend your protective window, if you want to take what these seed treatment nematicides give you and you want to try and extend that with Vidate, I want you to go out somewhere between the 5th and 7th true leaf. If you go out at the first leaf for thrips, you're not going to help yourself much with nematodes. If you go out at the third leaf, which is what my friends from DuPont are talking more and more about, you're getting late for thrips and you're still early for nematodes. You need to make a decision, in my opinion. Remember that Vidate's not perfect. It might not help much, but it does have some benefits. And if you want to use Vidate for a nematicide, in addition to your seed treatment nematicide, 5th to 7th true leaf. And then I can't guarantee the results, but it can help.
All right, what's your reasoning behind that?
Reasoning behind what?
behind the first leaf versus the seventh
Okay.
leaf? Whatever.
The first leaf, according to my friends who are entomologists, means if you're going to protect, once you get to the third true leaf, your battle with thrips is about over with. You've either won it or you've lost it. And if you're waiting to fight the battle with the third leaf, either you missed the battle or you didn't need to fight it at all. Okay? From a nematode standpoint, I think at the first leaf it's too early, the third leaf, for two reasons. First off is we're trying to extend that window of protection. So we're getting to, what the seed treatment's providing and getting a little bit later, we're wanting to get the nematicide out there. The second thing is the way I understand the Vidate to work, you want to have enough leaf material there so you can get uptake, you can capture as much of that Vidate as possible and get it down to the roots. Okay? If you're going out at the third leaf, smaller plants, less uptake, still within the protective window of the seed treatment. Okay? And I think it's too early. Am I going to stop anybody from doing it? No, but I think it's not. And when I talk to the guys out in Mississippi and North Alabama who do it, who believe in it, I believe in it because I don't have anything else. I pray, I please let it work. They believe it works and they do it all the time. And they say, you got to be kidding me. The 5th to 7th is what you want. Yes, sir.
How late is too late using Vidate?
I would say if you get past the 7th leaf, you're too late. Now, there's two ways to put it out. What I like to see is a 17-ounce rate going out at that 5th to 7th leaf, flooded in there. Some people will take 8.5, split it 8.5 at that 5th leaf stage and wait 2 weeks and come back in with 8.5. That's okay. But if you get beyond that 7th, what's happened is you've broken that window of continuous protection that you're hoping for. And I say hoping for, praying for. If you get beyond that 7th, I think you've already broken that. All we can do with the nematicide, we can't protect season long even with Telone, unless you're using resistant variety. We're hoping to get a root system established. And with the Vidate, and again, it's a prayer, not a promise, you're hoping to get that extended window extended from another week or so. Give that root system more time to develop. Great question. Okay? So what I'm talking about with the Vidate is take the Eris, the Invicta, or the Acceleron in and put it on top. The Vidate's labeled for this. Again, Vidate is not the best thrips material. Vidate is by no means the best nematode material. What we're trying to do is piece together a program until something else comes along. 2015, 2016, Bear Crop Science is bringing a new nematicide to cotton and peanuts, hopefully in Georgia first. That'll be a game changer for us. But until then, we need to piece it along. Okay?
Do you know how it will be applied?
The new nematicide, they're looking at 3 ways. The most common is they've looked at a seed treatment for the new nematicide. I don't think that's going to be the way they're going to go with it. They would like to, but I don't think. I think it's most likely going to be an in-furrow fungicide. In-furrow nematicide. It's fluopyram. Okay? Fluopyram. Anybody know what fluopyram is the active ingredient in? Luna fungicide. Okay? Fluopyram. It's also used as a fungicide. Have you ever heard of the fungicide series from Bear Crop Science called Luna? It's used on vegetables. Okay? Fluopyram, unbelievably, and it's true, they're not making it up, also has nematicidal activity. And the best results we've seen is where you put the fluopyram velum total, which is fluopyram plus Admire, as an in-furrow application for thrips and for nematode control. Most likely that's how it's going to go out.
And you think it might be labeled for 15?
Possibly on peanuts. Possibly on peanuts.
But not cotton.
I'm looking. It's possible. I'm thinking more like 16 for cotton. But I will say this, Bear Crop Science is moving forward as quickly as it can, and Georgia seems to be the state that they want to launch in first. And I think it'll be a game changer for us. It won't eliminate the others, but I think that Velum Total will be something that growers will rapidly adopt out of respect for the product. Yeah.
Any estimated cost?
No. And in fact, you won't even hear them talk about it. They're not going to talk about cost or anything like that, but I can say that as early as 15 for peanuts, maybe cotton, but it's coming very quickly. They've been doing a lot of work on it.
Sprayed on top of the seed in the furrow.
Yep.
What you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. All right. Just to show you, this is some data from 2011. We're just going to look at this. 367 is resistant. 375 is susceptible. They're similar varieties. We've got them with and without the fungicide, additional fungicide, the Overcoat, the Invicta, and the Vidate. And the question we want to ask is, too, can you protect these nematicides, protect these varieties with these nematicides? Does it make a difference? And does Vidate bring anything to the table? When we look at vigor, vigor is an indirect measure of plant health, how well they're doing. Again, the red and purple, this is your susceptible variety right outside here, about 500 yards from here, heavy nematode population. The blue is our resistant variety. The first thing you see is the biggest difference in vigor comes from if you got that resistant variety versus a susceptible variety. The second thing I want you to note is that here is the base treatment alone. When you put the when you put the Evicta plus the resistant variety, the Evicta plus the Vidate, what do you see? Even on the resistant variety, you're seeing at least a numeric response. A resistant variety is still responding to Evicta. It's still responding to Vidate as far as vigor goes. If you're going to plant 427 or 4946 or 1454, I think you still need use a seed treatment nematicide. It just works that much better. I think that we're compassing and getting better and better protection. I think you still need the benefits. Here you can see the use of the seed treatment Overcoat, the Dynasty. Here's the Evicta plus Vidate again. We're protecting the seed. When you look at gall ratings, end of the season, I promised you two things. I promised you fewer nematodes. I promised you less damage. Here's the damage that we get where we use the resistant variety. Here's the damage where we have the susceptible. But the Vidate, especially the Evicta, but the Evicta plus Vidate gives us a reduction in that damage. Nematodes in the soil. And again, that's one of the things I promised you. Fewer nematodes in the soil where you use the blue, which is 367, versus the red. But the Evicta is the big winner here. I don't think the Vidate is doing much, but the Evicta is helping us with that as well. Last slide on this. Our yield winners come from where we're using the resistant variety, a heavy nematode population. Two things to note. The first thing is this variety still responds when we put a seed treatment nematicide with it. This is the base. We can get increased yield where we treat it with seed treatments. The second thing is this is 375 plus Dynasty plus Evicta plus the Vidate. The Evicta plus Vidate on the susceptible variety brings it up to what the resistant would be. And again, take home point, the Vidate is not perfect, but it seems to be producing a little bit better yields for us in a tough situation. Will it always do it? I don't have that confidence, but I can say it's worth thinking about. So the pros and cons. Our combination, if you're not going to use Telone, is a resistant variety plus the Evicta or Eris plus the Vidate. I think there's merit in doing those. They're not better than fumigation, but they're certainly easier to put out. The resistance, we've talked about that. The efficacy, if you are in a smoking hot field, it's going to overwhelm everything but some of the resistance. It's unclear how much the Vidate helps, but I'm here to say that if you choose to use Vidate as an ingredient, as a component of your nematode management, I don't think that's lost. But again, better opportunity in the reniform fields, the heavier soils. When would I put it out? I would wait to the 5th leaf. Earlier than that, I think, is premature. Later than the 7th leaf, I think you're losing. Yeah.
You still like Telone?
I love Telone.
How much it costs today?
I didn't say I like the cost of it, but I love the Telone. Yeah, no, I'm joking with you. Telone is going to be somewhere between $15 and $20 an acre. And our rate is that's right, yeah. Wouldn't that be great? A gallon. You see how quickly they knew that? They knew to correct me on that. $15 to $20 a gallon, we're putting out 3 gallons an acre. So between 45 and 60. Okay?
How long does it last?
How long does it last?
How many seasons will it control nematodes?
It will control nematodes until you get a root growing back into that zone. Okay? I get that all the time. I put out Telone this year. What about next year? You better put it out. You can do this. You can put out Telone today if your soils are right and don't need to worry about putting it out when you plant. As long as you have your free root zone and there's not a weed host or something like that growing in, the nematodes will stay. Nematodes aren't going to move back in unless there's a reason to. But once the Telone's gone, enough that you can grow. You know, both the roots and the nematodes are susceptible to the telone. So if there's enough, if the telone's gone enough, your roots can grow, the nematodes can come back as well. All you're doing is creating a free zone, the roots get established, and then the nematodes build back in. At the end of the season, sometimes with telone, we see more nematodes in a telone-infested field, or treated field, than we do in the other. And that's because you got a better root system. So it doesn't keep them out season long, it keeps them out long enough. Good question.
What about if you plant cotton behind cabbage where you're using like up to 5 gallons of telone? Will you still get the benefit from the telone in that season, or would you need to put?
Question is, you've put out 5 gallons on your cabbage, which is also a host for the root knot nematode, and you're going to come right back in with cotton. Can you get away with not putting out telone? I would be very worried about it. I think that cabbage is susceptible enough that you're going to pull, and you're going to get good cabbage crop, but by the end, it's going to be pulling nematodes back. You're going to be planting the nematode, planting the seed right on top of it. Now, I haven't done that myself, but that would be my concern, is that there would be some risk. Now, if you went out there and looked and you didn't have any nematode damage and you took some soil samples, here's what I would do before I made that decision. I'd go out there at the time of cabbage harvest, I'd take nematode populations, I'd see what your nematode populations were, and if they're still very, very low, I might consider doing it. But I wouldn't blanket statement say I put the telone out already, because those roots are going to pull the nematodes back in. Okay? Why don't we use more telone? Well, the big C word, the big convenience, and the other big C word, cost. Telone is not convenient, and telone is investing $60 an acre before you even plant the seed. And that's a lot of faith. It's a lot of faith.
What
Okay.
about having Nemacure?
Nemacure. Nemacure's gone. That's not gone from the world. I think it's still sold in the world, but it's gone from us. Okay, unfortunately. It was just too toxic. All right? It seems like everything we want to use is too toxic. All right? I can't do anything about the convenience of telone. I can tell you that telone is a lot easier to use today in 2014 than it was in 2000. They got new operating systems. They've got new ways to put it out. One of the big things I can't control as well is the availability. Telone is a byproduct of the plastics industry. If the economy takes a downturn, less automobiles, less plastic, less telone. Okay? They sell out of telone every year, basically. Okay? So telone is hard to get. But what I can tell you is one of the factors that has to do with using telone is the cost. And the cost of telone, $60 an acre if you treat an entire field. But we know, blue dots, this is a field just south of here in Tift County. Blue dots mean larger nematode populations, southern root knot nematode populations. Same field, 2 seasons. Smaller blue dots, smaller nematode populations. What do we know about the biology of the root knot nematodes? Meredith, what do we know about that? I'd love to put you on the spot. She said to me this day, I need a refresher on nematodes. All right? What I can tell you is, where in the field are you most likely to find your root knot nematodes? Sandier areas. And you can look at the zones. We've used a various rig. We've mapped soil electroconductivity. You map the electroconductivity of the soil in a field. It is indicative of soil particle size. Lower conductivity, more sand. Higher conductivity, more clay and silt. And if you remember this, the larger spots are where? The lighter, sandier soil, fewer nematodes, and the heavier soil. The way I can try and help you use less telone, save on your production costs, is to say, let's only treat where we have to. The way that's being done, it's been developed in South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana. Georgia's involved with it as well. What's interesting is Georgia's growers are, in my opinion, 5 times more likely to aggressively adopt this technology than your neighbors in South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana. Even though it's more appropriate for them, Georgia growers are more aggressive at it. And I'm not sure why, but I'm glad you are. Here's how it works. Working with a consultant, you use a Varus rig. Varus rig simply measures soil conductivity. You develop a map based upon soil conductivity of heavier parts of the field and lighter parts of the field, and you map that. In this drawing, or in this map, the dark red is heavier, more sand, or more clay, silt. The lighter pinks or the whites, that's where you got more sand. You take that map and you translate it to a prescription map. Green means heavier soils. It means we don't need telone because of the soil particle size. Reds and oranges means higher risk. That's where we're going to put the telone out. In that field, we have cut telone use by over 50%. The grower in the past in Lawrence County has treated the entire field. In 2014, we treated less than half the field with telone, cut the cost of telone in half. This is a map of the late season damage. Blue is where we didn't treat at all. That's the damage, more damage, a taller bar. The blue, red, the yellow, and the green are not that different. Site-specific applications in red and yellow, full treated in green. We successfully treated the field and reduced the damage even though we treated less of the field. When we look at yields, and again the yields in this field suffered for other reasons, no telone, full telone, site-specific applications of telone. One way that we can manage costs, manage the amount of telone we use, is by using site-specific applications. Won't work in every field, works better where you got soil differences in the field, but something to consider. Yeah, Adrian?
What were your two different site-specific applications?
Excellent question. All right? The two different ones were this. The first one was on-off. If it's green, we're off. If it's orange or red, it's on at 3 gallons per acre. The second one was variable rate. If it's green, it's off. If it's orange, it's 3 gallons. If it's red, it's 4.5 gallons per acre. Just to see if we got any more benefit from that. I can show you fields where it doesn't work as well. But in this field in Lawrence County, in this situation, and we've tried this at a number of fields in your area, certainly in South Georgia, and it's worked for most of the part. Most of the growers I've never had a problem with growers who've tried it and didn't like it. Okay? Anybody in here tried that? Have you tried any of that? What do you think?
Works for me.
Okay. What would be the disaster for me standing here now is if you said, I should have treated the whole field. Okay? That's the big thing is you would know immediately. If you treat half the field based upon a prescription map, you'd know immediately if it didn't work. And you'd have told me.
I was happy with what we've done.
Good. Okay? Last thing to talk to you all about. Any questions on nematodes before I move to foliar diseases? Why am I talking to you today? What's the premise? What's the premise we're talking about is you have, as growers, have the opportunity to spend money on weeds, on seeds, all kinds of things. That's exactly right. You got the opportunity to spend money and you've seen that today. My job in Extension is to give you the information to help you make, not to tell you what your decision should be, but to help you make that decision. You've got the opportunity now. And again, Wilson's in the back from Syngenta. He's got the information. Where's that handout? He's got some up there. Really nice handout, by the way. He can get you this. He's got them back there. Okay? They've got the opportunity to try and help you decide how you want to use, or do you want to use a fungicide. 10 years ago, if we talked about using a fungicide for spraying cotton, we would have laughed. It would have been impossible to think of how we could do it. Jump ahead to 2014, what's changed? The biggest thing that's changed since 2000 and 2014 is there's a new disease in the state called target spot. Target spot, and these guys who are consultants in Southwest Georgia found it and identified it before I did. I misidentified it because I know so much. Okay? But what they've discovered is, and what we've confirmed, is use of fungicides protects that cotton crop, and if nothing else, it keeps the leaves on. It reduces the amount of disease. We've always had leaf spot diseases in Georgia. We've always had them. And there's a bad one called Stymphalium leaf spot right here that is tied to potassium deficiencies in the field. Those spots are caused by a fungus called Stymphalium. A deficiency in potassium opens the plant up, makes the cell walls weaker. The Stymphalium comes in. The plant shows nutritional deficiency. The fungus comes in and you have rapid defoliation and problems. And this is picture perfect. Sandy soils, either low potassium in the field or the potassium was not able to be taken by the plant of drought or too much water. The field looked healthy and almost overnight you can go from looking at a healthy field about 2 weeks, the whole field or areas of the field become susceptible. You get these spots on the leaves, you note the reddening and the orange and the yellowing, and the leaves drop off. And any bolls that aren't mature at that point, the game is over. The game's over. We've tried fungicides on this. Why is it important for you to know the difference between Stymphylium leaf spot and target spot? If you don't care about leaf spot diseases, then don't listen. Okay? But if you care about managing them, you have to know the difference. Because this plot was treated twice with headline, and this plot was treated twice with headline. This one had no potassium. This had 180 pounds per acre. With Stymphylium leaf spot that we've been living with, you've got to manage the potassium. Putting a fungicide out is not going to help you. If you get later in the season, you think you got target spot and you spray a fungicide, but it was Stymphylium, it's not going to help you. And when I knew so much, and you all were calling me about what it might be, I assumed it had to be that. And the final frustration I got was, Bob, not every field in South Georgia is potassium deficient. And that's when I started listening. Okay? These are the leaves, the spores. These are the leaves from target spot, the other disease. And they frequently fall off while they're still green. You get the spots on the leaves still look healthy except for the spots. This fungus apparently gives some sort of toxin that causes dehiscence, causes the leaves to drop, and you have rapid defoliation from the interior of the canopy. Stymphylium leaf spot, the entire canopy becomes affected at one time, and you have a massive leaf shed. With the target spot, the top of the canopy is perfect. If you're going by at 50 miles an hour, you won't see a difference. You get out into it and you've lost 60-75% of the canopy without even knowing it. The leaves build up where the moisture is. This is entirely moisture driven, and the leaves fall off. What's that value? What happens? So what? People have challenged me. So what, Bob? The leaves fell off. So what on a cotton crop?
No photosynthesis.
Well, they say, those leaves aren't doing anything anyway. They're in the interior of the canopy. They're just there. They don't matter. And then they tell me, well, I don't mind opening that canopy up. That's going to help me with my boll rot. Both of those things are true. If I could stop the defoliation at 20% and I could only lose the leaves that were not affecting growth and development of the bolls, it doesn't matter. But as you've seen, quickly you lose more leaves, and you quickly lose leaves that are feeding bolls. And that's what the problem is. This is extension agent over in East Georgia. It's extremely uncomfortable for us right now because I want 3 things before I make a recommendation to you as a grower. Adrian, I want 3 things. I want to have 3 years of replicated trials where each year is the same. Each year says, if you do this, you're going to get this. Right now we only have 2 good years. Last year we only had 1. The second thing is I love when statistics agree. I know you all don't need 95% confidence that something's going to happen, but I need 95% confidence to sleep well. And the last thing I want is my neighbors in other states to agree with what I'm saying. Well, we don't have necessarily any of that right now. We got neighbors who say this disease doesn't matter. Alabama believes it matters. Florida believes it matters. But some of the other states, South Carolina, Tennessee, they're not sure. North Carolina's not sure. Mississippi's not sure. Okay? What I choose to do, what I think is most appropriate for you, the growers, is to let you know what the limitations are. But I truly believe that this is a disease that needs to be managed. Our consultants believe it's a disease that needs to be managed. And I'm telling you what we want to do, what we think is the best answer right now with the fungicides we have. And then let you make your decision. Okay? You're not going to hurt my feelings if you disagree. Okay? Just remember, Stymphylium leaf spot, if you've got that, you need to manage your potassium. If you've got target spot, a good fungicide program using headline, twinline, or quadris is going to protect the crop, not perfectly. It's going to keep the leaves on, and in a number of trials we've seen, though the results are variable, we've seen an increase in yield. But even our most aggressive fungicide program has not been enough to protect it. I don't think we're actually penetrating the canopy enough later in the season to protect the crop. First reported in Mississippi, disappeared for 45 years. Our consultants in Southwest Georgia saw it as early as 2005. By 2007, I said, yeah, you're right. I should have known that in 2005. Okay? And we know now that it's something called target spot. Also goes to the hydrangea. If you got hydrangeas in your yard and they're not frozen back, look at the spots in the hydrangea, same pathogen. Same pathogen on soybeans. There is a tendency for people who've only heard about target spot a little bit and say, I don't grow one variety, I don't grow that variety, I grow in a little bit, I don't have a problem. The biggest mistake you could walk out of here thinking is that this is a 499 problem. 499 is a popular variety. 499 gets a lot of this disease, but it's not the only variety. Mitchell County last year we did a trial. We got everything from 1137 to 367. We got 1252, 1050, 1944, 4946, 5288. The blue bar is where we treated twice with headline. The red bar is where we didn't. All the varieties responded. The 499 was the one that responded the least, ironically. And when you summarize the data across all the varieties, 95% confident the statistics work, you made 150 pounds of lint spraying twice. In a field that didn't have a whole lot of target spot. And at 70 cents cotton, that's $105 an acre by treating. And the cost of the treatment was probably somewhere around $40. So you can do the math. Is it worth it to you? Doesn't matter to me, but it's real.
When was you first sprayed?
Excellent. Great question. You led me right into my slide. The next question is, well, if it works, when do I want to spray? We've tried to spray every 2 weeks beginning at first square. It's not economical and doesn't make much difference. The best, most consistent treatments we've got. Here's your untreated defoliation. This is where we put these products out at the first and third or the second and fourth week of bloom. My recommendation is if a grower wants to try and manage this disease, the first and third or second and fourth week of bloom is when I would do it. If you're only going to spray one time, I do the third week of bloom. That timing is critical. It's the same in 2013 and 2012. It's critical because you get in there before the disease is widespread, and you get in there before the canopy is completely closed and you're getting penetration with your fungicide. Could I be wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. But from what I've seen so far, that first and third week of bloom or second and fourth is most consistent. We've seen positive benefits of spraying as late as the fifth week of bloom. Okay? Next question is, what about the yield? In that trial, these best treatments gave us about a 200-pound lint increase, a lot of variability. Some things didn't out-yield the check, some did. At Apolgus that year, 9 out of 11 treatments gave us a yield increase when we sprayed. Tifton that year, 6 out of 9 treatments gave us a yield increase, mostly around that first and third week of bloom. And when we look at Stripling Irrigation Park last year, another trial, every treatment where we sprayed gave us a yield increase. Okay? So if you were to ask me for a recommendation, what do I think today? First and third week of bloom, second and fourth, that's the timing I would use. 2 sprays is more convenient, not convenient, more consistent. If you're only going to go out once, third week of bloom, if you get to the 6th week of bloom and still see some damage, would you spray? Possibly. Yeah, Adrian.
Headline's expensive. What about something cheaper?
Excellent question. Tebuconazole, the old Folicure, Tebuzol, it's labeled for use on cotton. You could spray 6 ounces for about $2.
Does it work?
2012, I recommended the growers go ahead and try it if you're not going to spray anything else. We just saw no results from it. The workhorse, the azoxystrobin in the quadrus, the pyraclostrobin in the headline, that's where we're getting the biggest benefit. Twin line's a combination of pyraclostrobin and metconazole. The twin line doesn't work as well as the headline does. Why? To put the twin line together, they cut the rate on the pyraclostrobin. Okay?
What about a bound? Have you used any of that? Test?
Abound? Of course, we all know that Abound and Quadrus are the same thing, but Wilson, we would never use Abound because it's not labeled on the product or on the crop, but they are the same thing. But So no, I've never used a Bound, Wilson. All right. What's the big problem with the Bound in 2014? Big problem is it's going off patent. So for a short honeymoon period of time, you're going to have some cheap azoxystrobin, but if we don't manage it carefully, we're going to lose it because they're going to be used too much of it. Last thing, I'm going to let you all go. I handed you out a risk index. If you want to decide whether you should spray or not, first today, what's your belief in what I've just showed you? The second thing is what's your use of fungicides. The last thing is growers who are here from southwest Georgia, from Mitchell County, Adrian, you all are in a hot spot. You all are in ground zero for where this disease started. You all are 25 points. If you go up to growing cotton up in Jefferson County or Burke County, you're more like a 10 point. Okay? If you have rank vegetative growth or aggressive growing cotton, you increase your risk. This fungus is based upon location and it's based upon moisture, and you have more moisture when you got that heavy canopy. If you got a dry land field with poor growth, don't even think about spraying for target spot. If you got a heavy growth, that's where you want to use it. The cotton variety, I don't even assign points at this point in time. We may at some point, but don't think it's just a $4.99 problem. Managing target spot, we can manage the disease, we can reduce defoliation, we get results. Auburn University, Austin Hagen, he gets highly significant results. I can't duplicate what he does. I got nothing on him, Jeff, nothing, all right? But what I can tell you is our data supports what he has, and that is a yield benefit. Not all fields treated with the fungicide have responded. Not all fields have responded. Some growers have actually lost money spraying where they didn't get that yield benefit, especially last year where it cooled down and the disease didn't develop. Okay? But in a warm year, especially a warm, wet year, it's something to consider. Current fungicide programs we're going to continue to evaluate. That's what I got. What I want you to walk away from now, or think about what you can spend your money on: seed treatments, nematicides, and fungicides, and how can you do that most effectively to make money for your farm. Questions from me? Questions at all? Okay. Did anybody here, I hope you've all signed up for your CCU credits or whatever they are. Have you all signed up for those? If you signed up one time today, that's all you need. I think there's 2 hours for this meeting, and you should have gotten that. Any questions? I'm as close as your county agent. You get with your county agent, I'd be happy to help you. I appreciate y'all staying around. If you got any questions, I'm going to hear till you leave, okay? All right, appreciate it.